Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome on behalf of AFCEA and NetApp, the sponsor of Theater 2. Welcome to this session on Enterprise ICAM Identity, Credential, and Access Management. NetApp serves the warfighter by providing the widest used DISA APL data operating system in the DoD, providing the ability to be able to identify data, classify it, categorize it, and set permissions in accordance with zero trust policies. Mr. John Basie is the program manager for Enterprise ICAM, and we want to welcome him. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all. Thank you. I'm going to try to make my presentation a little bit shorter, a little bit sweeter, a little bit to the point. There's a great presentation on quantum going on at 11 o'clock, and I hear everybody's excited for that. But I will definitely stick around for the full hour for questions and introductions afterwards. So good morning, everyone. My name is John Basie, pronounced kind of like the Count Basie. I'm the DISA ICAM Enterprise Program Manager. I'm prior service. I was an Army veteran. I worked for contracting in Korea and then worked for the 173rd Airborne in Italy. Joined DISA in 2019 as the GVS deputy. And then became the DIOS operations lead, and recently I was invited and embraced by family and ID DISA to become the ICAM PM. So I'm very happy to be here. But I will say I spent most of my career in IT overseas, directly supporting the warfighter. So everything I do, every meeting I go into it, I am always thinking about the service members that I work with, that are still fighting a good fight, with the 173rd, the 82nd Army Futures Command. So I always bring that to everywhere I go. I do apologize. I've been to AFCEA. I've participated for years, but this is the first time that I'm on stage alone by myself. I'm a little bit nervous, but if you bear with me, we'll get through this together. I can. So what is the Enterprise ICAM? I guess I'm driving my own slides. Forgot about that. Thank you. This capability ensures that I didn't realize the disclaimer was in there. My apologies. Let's go on the next slide. This capability provides that we give the right people the right access to the right information at the right time and for the right reasons. That's a lot of requirements on an individual programmer access control. So how do we do this? We have three main pillars. Our first and foremost, our biggest pillar is the IDP, the identity provider. You've all probably heard of Global Federated User Domain or Global Directory. Many of you, if you're working in the DoD today, you have logged into some system and you see NIC, the military working dog splash screen to be able to access. Every time you hit that page, you're hitting the DISA identity provider for ICAM. That system is an entire database of effectively everybody's persona. Everything that identifies you as you within the DoD space is included as attributes in that system. The other pillar that we have is our automated authentication provider. That is the workflows that go through processes to say, is your supervisor validating the job that you're doing? Has your security clearance been checked and up to date? Have you completed your cybersecurity annual training? A lot of those factors go into the access control, and all of them have different checks and balances that have to be put in place. The third pillar is our master user record. That is the combination of your identity with your authorizations indexed in a way that it automatically provisions your access into systems. No longer are you waiting on an admin or a tech or a entitlement manager going into a system and typing out and creating your entitlement. It is all automatically provisioned. So think of this scenario. Well, let me ask you this question first. How many of you have ever filled out a DD 2875 PDF? How many of you, keep your hands up. Leave your hands up. Leave your hands up if you enjoyed that process. One. All right, so gone are the days where there is back when it was like form flow, and then it became fillable PDFs, And there are still some agencies that have different automated systems out there, but there's almost always a gate where the form stops and somebody's got to go create your account. And that tends to be the longest pole, even if you figure out the game of chutes and ladders of the 2875 process in your organization. So what our system is doing is we're starting to integrate with we've actually integrated with several systems and agencies already to do that automatic provisioning. So once all your accounts are approved, all the gates and checks are required by Congress, it just starts kicking out automatically setting up your accounts. So take, for example, I'm going to pick on Travis here. So Travis is one of our contract team members. He may need an account on GFUD. He might need an account in Depot. He might need an account in a time card system or an access, a VAR system. He might have 5 different systems as a leader that he needs to go and approve other people their accesses. In the past, he'd have to fill out 5, 6, 7 different 2875s that everyone has a different requirement of what they need to go in that form. With our system, all of that's predetermined. He checks a couple of boxes when he's submitting into the AAP, and at the back end, all those accounts just get kicked out as soon as everything's approved. He no longer has to keep doing a new PDF every year for every individual system. It's just an automatic workflow. The bottom line is that it becomes a uniform access for all accounts. No longer does one person get get their access sooner because they maybe bought a better Christmas card for the person entering in the system. I'm sorry, I think one of my slides got out of order. Apologize. So this roadmap reflects our modernization over the course of time. In the DoD, we've gone through different security, restricting to CAC, getting into mobile systems, and then with 2022, with the launch of Enterprise ICAM, we're starting to automate and pull the data together in centralized locations and making it more value add and integrated. What we're looking for in the future is to be able to federate with different agencies and entities that actually already have a different ICAM solution, though they're not the enterprise DoD-wide. We're looking at leveraging the data not as owned and controlled, as was discussed in some other panels and presentations, but making reports and audits more fluid and accessible, as opposed to not us restricting what the report looks like or is formatted or includes, but rather opening up the system so the data is agnostic, and just by integrating with our APIs, you can pull that information and use it to whatever you have to do for mandates for congressional audits and the like. We're also looking at, we're piloting privileged access management today, looking to also have that additional automated just-in-time access. So no longer does somebody sit with a global admin or a groups admin or a mainframe admin account that is open 24/7, 365. Rather, they only get the account, even though they're pre-approved for it, they only get the access when they need it for the right purpose and for a limited period of time, so it doesn't sit open as an attack vector for our adversaries. We're also working towards getting to attributed-based access control. Almost everybody's familiar with role-based access. You're all familiar with rule-based access, but the dilemma with that is there still has to be a human constantly setting up those rules and adjusting them as the mission changes. As we strive for attribute, both the data tagging, the data labeling, the attribute standardizations for the identity persona, as we achieve those goals, we'll be able to use more machine logic, machine learning to look at behaviorals within the environment and make sure that people are getting the access they need, but they're also not getting the accesses when they don't need it, say 2 o'clock in the morning when they're not really supposed to be working. Okay. With that, it actually was a lot shorter than I thought it was. So with that, I'm going to pause, and if you've got any questions, please step up to the mic, and I will do my best to answer anything that you have. If you do ask a question that I feel is a little bit out of scope, I will let you know. This is not the DISA Ask Me Anything sessions that I've hosted in the past, but any questions about Enterprise ICAM, feel free to step up. I already told my team they're not allowed to heckle me and ask questions, so it's up to you.
So my name is Donald Greenlight with USACE G6. If you go to the last slide that you had. So do you have, I see some of your capabilities in 23 plus. Do you have a roadmap of when you're going to, like now and when you're going to get to some of these like PAM and other?
Some of the details we didn't bring because of the OPSEC of the room. Some of those dates will depend. We are in the process right now of focusing a lot of effort on the IDP and standing up the IDP in SIPR to support the DoD's and DoD centralized office collaboration system. So I don't have that information with me now. We are working on building a ICAM hub for the program, which will include a lot of that information, and anybody already with a CAC access to 365 joint will be able to hit that information.
Good morning, Mr. Eckstein from First TSC G6. With the PAM, if it's a 2 a.m. and something breaks, how do they regain that access? Because it's good to stop it, but...
Right. So it's a self-service go in. So once you've actually completed the SAR process, the AAP and the MER, and the record exists that you're authorized for that access, it sits available, just disabled. So you go to a self-service portal with your admin account, and you say, hey, I need this access, and hit go, and it opens it up for 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. You get that access at that time when you actually need it. Unfortunately, and I was a system admin myself for my contracting days, and a lot of times you'd get the rights for the whole year, but you'd only need it for a couple hours a week. And for all that extra time, that is an attack vector that is wide open for somebody stealing that credentials and then leveraging for adversaries. So the intent is that you've got a pre-approval for the access, but you go into a system with your regular identity credentials, your user base, say, hey, my admin account needs this, that I'm pre-approved for 3 hours. You turn on it within a couple of seconds, maybe minutes, depending on network traffic. You've got that access. You go to work and do that job then, and then get out.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Nikki Brooks. I'm the Deputy CIO over at USACE. So my question is, with your ICAM solution that you're putting in place, are there any considerations for non-CAC holders? And so I'm asking that question because I have a huge civil works mission, and a lot of those our mission partners in local, state governments that utilize some of our resources do not hold CACs.
I understand, and that's been a big challenge across the DoD for a while. It is on the forefront of our intent of trying to figure that out, of like who's going to own that mission. Because I think the technology exists between our vendor partners for us to do that. It's the very, very first time that we identify a person that's kind of the problem. With the CAC, everybody gets used to the CAC and they think that's like uniform and it's easy. But on day one, the first time somebody worked for the DoD, they had to sit at a desk in front of a human with a stack of paperwork and probably your passport and your driver's license and the firstborn child, and you had to sell your soul to get that CAC the first time. But after that, it becomes easier ever since. That first inject of what is it, even if we use username, password, a multi-factor app, maybe even fingerprint or other biometrics as an identity, somebody has to sit down and put the human carbon fiber against that digital ID footprint, and that mission is still being worked out even at the DoD CIO level.
Yeah, because I think for us it's going to cause a problem because we have been looking at your solution versus the Army solution to see which way we're going to go, but those considerations, considering our mission, is going to hamper our ability to move forward with the capability, and we know that we need to modernize and transform our environment from that perspective, so we're hoping that someone will come up with those considerations to assist.
I am driving hard to be first to market with that solution.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I'm not that tall. All right, so I'm Leah with Trade.G6 at Fort Benning. So my question is, if you're going to allow you to log on as an admin for a number of hours and maybe you only need it every few months, how does that work with the stale accounts? So is the admin card not going to go stale, then you're going to have to get disabled or recreated, or if they're automatically disabled at 35 and deleted at 45?
That becomes a question with the system owners.
Okay.
So what our solution does is it provides the notice to the system that says, this person needs that access, or they're pre-approved for that. We'll have to work that out with the actual end user systems in our onboarding that says what are their rule sets and how do we keep that alive. So it's a very good question. I don't have an explicit answer for you because it varies between each of the different customer organizations and their system and how they implement their rules.
Okay. And at the beginning, you mentioned DD2875s. Mm-hmm. So when can we use like one DD2875 and not like four DD2875s for everything? Is that going to be
That is absolutely
possible?
correct. And let me expand on that. So when the information goes in the system, understand is that the purpose of Congress of having that delegation down to the branches and the organizations, it's not to have a PDF. The intent is having the control mechanisms in the information aggregated to one location so that the right decisions are being made for that access. So all the information in our system is just stored as the data that would feed that 2875. And then there's a mechanism for audits so that if they need to print a PDF, that can be exported in that format. But all the data is just stored in a database.
Okay. Thank you.
I told you to come back after the
I know,
presentation.
John. Hopefully this is an easy question for you. It's about timelines and the DoD Zero Trust timelines, the Target Zero Trust timelines. Would you say that you're on track to fulfill those, ahead or behind?
I'm going to say that the velocity is increasing, but I'm not going to commit that we're ahead, behind, or in front. I think the ICAM space, the Zero Trust space, the Thunderdome space is all trying to advance as fast as everybody can in an agile fashion in an organization as big as the DoD that's still doing things in waterfall, and we got to have everything 100% complete and burned to DVD before we start doing analysis. So a lot of those challenges we are hitting, and it's also a matter of like the governance and the policy writers and what level of confidence they want to take risk and let us just drive with the technology and worry about congressional acceptance a little bit later. So I don't have timelines for you, but I will tell you that I'm very motivated to drive this ICAM, enterprise ICAM across the DoD a whole lot faster than, say, the last 10 years.
Well, you all have made some amazing progress, so good on you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. It's an amazing team. All right, I'll give it a hot minute. I've been in the audience enough times to know that sometimes it takes a little bit to formulate that question, to get up the nerves, to go stand in front of the microphone. I only bite inside of DISA, so. All right, with that, thank you all very much. Oh. What is her rating?
I work for the program, the deputy program manager, but I think it's important too because the audience is mixed of Army, Navy, and Air Force. So the ask of the question is, how many ICAMs are in this space? And then what is the ICAMs, are we going to federate? Are we going to talk together? So kind of want to prompt that because it is a mixed crowd and there's some Army customers and I think their expectation is a little bit different depending on their ICAM service provider.
Understood. Actually, they caught me in a metric thing that I didn't write down. So I'm going to, Tim S., how many ICAM solutions exist today?
So you have DISA as the enterprise ICAM. Then there's 7 component approved, BCA approved ICAMs: Army, Air Force, Navy, DARPA, DLA, DCSA, and I'm forgetting somebody. But DHA, there we go.
Thank you very much. So on that point, for the point I think Major Hall was trying to get across, just like zero trust, you hear the term zero trust, and you don't realize unless you get outside of your space into the broader DoD, there is more than one. And within ICAM, there's all the different types of ICAMs, but there's only one enterprise ICAM. So when you hear the term enterprise ICAM, that is DISA. Every other space of Army, Navy, Air Force, when they're talking about ICAM in a meeting or a presentation, and they don't say the word enterprise, they are talking about their ICAM solution, not the enterprise that's really there for all the DAF's fourth step.
And they're all required by fiscal year 27.
Step up to the mic, please, sir.
And they're all required by fiscal year 27 to federate with us. So,
Yeah, the Federation discussions have been active. A lot of thanks to a lot of our different stakeholder mission partners, vendors, and MITRE that's helping kind of drive a lot of that governance discussion at the DoD and setting up what Federation is going to look like. And I'm very glad you all reminded me of that, because this ties back into the keynote speaker yesterday from lunch and one of our panels on data. Everybody talks about data labeling for classification markings and access and metadata attributes. When we're talking about data standardization inside of the ICAM space, we're talking about the persona data. And that's actually a little bit easier problem to solve than the greater big data analytics information and turning it into knowledge discussion. Within our space, where we need the vendor help is that defining that standard and not making each identity attribute data points proprietary or proprietary inputs. As I mentioned in my previous panel, there was a day where you just pulled up the IEEE standard, the ISO standard, and things were easy. You could start building and working interoperability because somebody else in industry already nailed down, got the big folks together and said, hey, this is the standard. We're not going to wait on the government. The government's slow. No matter what we try to go fast, when it comes to standardization, we're probably the worst ones to look at. So if we could get industry to get together and say, okay, our persona, our identity attributes aren't going to be a proprietary, 54 characters or characters and numbers or only certain types of data. If we get the industry to get together and say, okay, it's just going to be standard as far as those data attributes, and everything else about our technology, your technologies, your products, is the capability it drives after the fact, but all the identity information is actually very easy to federate or API. That would save us a ton of time wasted that our warfighters just don't have the time to sit around and wait. Any more questions? All right, with that, I want to thank you all for coming out. Thank you for giving me your undivided attention and time.